Welcome to the Not Null Podcast. I'm just an AI voice, but here are your real hosts, Kevin Doyle, Alex Lee, Paul Bratslavsky, and Bobby Davis.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. This podcast is where we talk about all things tech, from AI to VR, flying cars, robots with guns, maybe later today, maybe. Bit weird, but we'll talk about that. This week I'm joined by Bobby Davis, Paul Bratslavsky, Alex Lee's back from his awesome trip to Mexico. So that's cool. And I'm Kevin Doyle. So this week we're going to talk about 4 different things. We're going to talk about immortality. Weird topic, but we're going to talk about immortality. Is it on the horizon? We're talk about Microsoft launching CoPilot into its 365 suite of apps. It's interesting. In our Skynet Watch section, we're going to talk about robots and security guards, or robotic security guards with guns. What a weird topic. What world are we living in right now? What year is this?
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing can go wrong with that.
Literally.
I've seen RoboCop. It's perfect.
There we go. And then finally, we're going to talk about something personal to us. I've asked you guys to bring your one app that you have on your phone that you either can't live without, or you use the most, or is your favorite, or I left it kind of open because last time you guys complained and changed the rules on me. So I left it open. Just something that you find interesting, an app that you love on your phone for whatever reason you love it, whether it be useful, fun, whatever. Just some kind of app that you can recommend and why you use it a lot, maybe, or why you find it so useful. So let's jump into our first topic. So immortality coming soon. So if you Google the word immortality right now, here's what you're not expecting. You're not expecting to see top news stories for the word immortal, right? I'm thinking I'm going to see like vampire movies, like old school stuff, maybe the description of immortality. But no, you're seeing the top thing that comes up when you Google it are stories related to immortality, and the headlines like, which just blew me away, was like immortality expected, or humans will achieve immortality within 7 years. And I'm like, wow. Okay. So when you start reading into this article, there's a guy called Ray Kurzweil. I'm familiar with him. He's a computer scientist, technologist, futurist, author. He's a winner of a National Medal of Technology, which is the US's basically the highest honor you can get in technology in the US. It's a presidential like award that you get. So this is somebody who knows what he's talking about technically, right? This is somebody who who's made some good predictions in the past, but has also made some bad ones. So he made the prediction, though, that we are on track to achieve immortality within 7 years through the use of AI and basically of nanobots fixing us. He thinks we can cure illness and cure these things through nanobots and technology on the track that we're going within 7 years. That's like 2030. So he thinks this is close. What do you guys think about this?
Oh my God. I think he's just trying to be like, man, I want to stay relevant. What can I say today? But I mean, when's the last time you saw a working nanobot that you're like, oh, it's doing something useful? And then multiply that by 7 years from now and be like, is it realistic? I don't know. I mean,
so he's got predictions correct and predictions wrong. Okay. So he's predicted things like, what did he get right? He got that AI would beat a human at chess before the year, I think 2010 or something like that. I think he said 2020. And it did. IBM's Blue did beat that. So he's predicted some things around AI and some things around computers that have come true. He also predicted some things that were wrong. He predicted he didn't predict the .com bubble, an issue. He predicted that would continue on and we'd be well in advance, and that would be where we'd be well in advance today. So he's definitely got some things wrong, but he has got some things right.
It's like saying me in a relationship, I'm like half the time right also. So what does that mean? Like, it's like,
oh, you're just saying it's law of averages, then he's half the time.
Yeah, it's like you say some wild stuff and if it happens, you'll be like, I told you so. If it doesn't, it's like, I was wrong. Who would have thought that,
I thought the world was going to end because of global warming inside of 12, and that was like 4 years ago. So that means that we'd be immortal in space because the world's going to blow up, I guess. I'm not really sure what he's going to do. The other thing, here's what I really don't like about this story, is that people take
Guns
AI
blazing.
and invent things like beyond Star Trek things, like even Star Trek people don't live forever. So even Gene Roddenberry didn't imagine this. But when you look at it, Massachusetts, MIT, Chicago University, they're all looking at self-repairing cells. And so maybe that's what he's thinking, that we can create a nanobot, which is a really small robot. So we have to really venture out some stuff. There has to be some inventions, and we have to get after it.
Right.
So it seems like you could at least grow a hand if you lost a hand or something before you would become immortal, which you can't do yet. So.
I think the timing of this article is great because what is that saying? The only certain things in life is death and taxes. So with taxes stuff coming,
maybe it's just taxes now. Maybe it's just taxes.
It will be hilarious if the study is funded by IRS and they're just like, yes, we'll get you all the time, no matter what. You'll be paying taxes for life.
So what do you guys think in general about this idea of so immortality being not only can it fix you, but also this idea of you being able to so what are you, right? What are you as a person? Are you a collection of thoughts? Can you be replicated? Can you be transferred? Is that something that we're talking about? Or you're talking about your physical body? We know that like your physical body cannot last forever as being immortal, right? That's just impossible. It will die over time. But what are you? Are you your mind? Can you be transferred into something else? Is that the kind of thing? Do you think that's ever going to happen?
I mean, none of us are doctors, but like, isn't with age, doesn't your brain also deteriorate to a certain extent? So like, are these nanobots gonna, I mean, to Bobby's point, like I think there are some arms that you could like attach to for people that like kind of lost it or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of outside of nanobots. But what are they actually fixing? Are they fixing the physical structure of your body, or are they able to actually fix your brain? Like, if that's the case, then definitely, I guess it could be possible where you could just start transferring your brains to like, I don't know, I guess moving robots. Like very futuristic thinking of like Terminator, but I don't know actually. And until we see something in action of what it's potentially can do, like it's really hard to say what is considered like immortal in this sense. Yeah,
I've actually read studies though that said the brain never stops. It's just that people stop. That the brain can always be very kind of like moving all the way up until in your mid 90s when you're practically on your deathbed. And then, but some people just quit learning, quit using it. But if you could repair the cells, I guess technically we could live forever. But I wonder how long it would be before Highlander breaks out. I mean, like that's what happens in society. If everyone lived forever, would there only be one? I mean, is that what's going to happen? You go into sword fights.
What about like Alzheimer's and stuff?
If cells would fix it, they would just fix it.
Magically with AI.
Maybe. Nanobots, sure.
Maybe.
Whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. So it does bring up a point, though. I mean, this leads to a whole bunch of other things. I think this is just junk. I agree with Paul. I think this is just making him kind of like a relevant thing. It's like he's just trying to say something to become kind of newsworthy. But I don't think it's going to be a thing. But it brings up a point that what if there's a case where this can happen? Let's say that it's longer than 7 years. It's just a much, much, much longer. What happens with people being born? Do we need new people? Is that even a thing anymore? Is that even like is that a thing? I guess not.
If you're immortal,
really thought experiment.
Yeah, people that we would have a lot of people on the planet if we became immortal and no one died. There'd be
only the privileged are allowed to procreate.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's how it'd work out. Yeah, there's only a few that get the miracle nanobots. Everyone else, you got to fend for yourself. So,
right.
But maybe they could sell that land in Montana now. You know, like you could build houses in Montana because it's practically empty anyway. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, who is going to get the benefit of this amazing technology? Is it going to be the top 1% who have their special club and, and then we have that movie Elysium, going on where all the...
Yes, we've seen the movies. Yeah.
It's I think that they should have been more believable with this and be like, in 7 years, we'll cure Alzheimer's, or we will be able to extend life by 20 years. But to be like immortality in 7 years, it's like a little ridiculous.
I agree. It's making a giant leap, isn't it? I agree. We need to see things like a cure for Alzheimer's, a cure for cancer, like those kind of things. When we start seeing those things, now we can start talking about what does that actually mean, curing those things. Less people die from those things. I think
you should be able to replace a limb before you can say you're going to be immortal because you get your hand cut off.
Oh, you're right. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We don't even have flying cars. You know what I'm saying?
We don't have flying cars.
It's like, what are you saying, Immortal?
We
It's
clearly know flying cars become
Yeah.
before immortality, right?
It's a little off topic, but is flying cars not possible because we just don't have the technology for flying cars, or is it just a logistics nightmare to
Yes,
actually
a little bit of everything. Yeah.
100% logistics. We could have flying cars. We can have flying cars today, but think about regulation, cost.
Exactly.
It doesn't
So
work.
I would argue they wouldn't be flying cars. They'd be like flying drones that a person could sit in. Like my vision of a flying car, it's like a car that flies and the wheels turn down and you powered like with jets. That's a flying car. But what we're able to have right now is drone taxis. Yeah, 100%.
But we could make those today. The technology exists to do that. It's just the extra. Who's going to be responsible for landing something like that in your driveway? Like who, and then how much is it going to cost? We're not talking about the cost of a car. We're talking about the cost of a Learjet, right? It's like, these are two very different things.
Yeah. Imagine if a car gets into an accident too above you and you're just like walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of other things.
Parts.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why we don't have flying cars, but I don't think invention isn't one of them.
Yeah. Because we have planes.
Right.
I mean, we could make one, but
Yeah.
Why just call it a plane?
It's just a plane. It's a plane you park in your driveway. That's really what it is. Or a helicopter, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about Microsoft launching CoPilot into its 365 apps. So you guys being developers, you're all familiar with this word CoPilot, right? Because it's been in Visual Studio, which we'll talk about in a second. But they've also added something now called CoPilot or they're going to be adding. It's in like a pre kind of test phase, apparently, with some companies having access to it. Microsoft has put CoPilot now, which is their AI, right? So it's basically putting ChatGPT into their 365 application. So this is putting AI into things like Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook and Teams and OneNote, and that's used in various different ways within those applications. Now, the one thing that they did show off, which I really liked in this, was when they created a PowerPoint, and it was great. The lady created a PowerPoint for like her daughter's graduation or something, or birthday party or whatever. She's turned a certain age, and it said, hey, basically create me a PowerPoint for my daughter's birthday and show me her achievements and things. And it created this really cool PowerPoint. It stylized it, and she made some changes to it. It didn't create it correctly the way that she wanted it. She made some suggestions, and it changed a few of the slides. And basically, she ended up with this cool birthday PowerPoint. I thought it was kind of cool because it felt like templates on steroids, right? It was like a template, but it was a personalized template. So not only did it take like a template design, but then it made it very personalized to her data. Because what it did, and what this application actually does, is it has like a mesh, right? So it basically takes data it knows about you. It's read your Word documents, it's read your emails, it knows your Teams messages, it knows everything, it knows your calendar. It knows all of this information. So therefore, when you ask it to do something, it can take all those things into context and take those actions. So if you ask it to, let's say, within Outlook, write an email to Bob about something, like, hey, I want to answer Bob about that calendar invite that he sent me the other day. It can write a very contextual email with very specific details around it knows what Bob asked you. It knows what day. It knows, like, it's very interesting. Guys, thoughts on this?
I mean, I already made my thought in the last podcast about my answering service. This is just the answering machine service. This is the extension of that. It's like, why are we needed? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do?
We still have to tell it. This was kind of my point. We still had to tell it. Like in the example, she still had to explain like what was like, she had to fix the PowerPoint. It didn't just spit out like this finalized product.
But how long is that going to last? A month?
Yeah.
2 months?
Yeah, exactly.
Before it's like, I know you better than yourself. You don't need to give any input, Paul.
So it said that it went to their OneDrive. And you can see where they're going at. And OneDrive went and found the image of the daughter or whatever.
It did. Yep.
And so here's what I think. And I haven't used it yet, so I want to try it. But I imagine if your OneDrive was as crowded as mine, it may pull a few wrong pictures up. Like, I don't know which one's your daughter. Or like, so like, I don't know how good it would be. It looked like what you said, Kevin. They already had templates in there. If you've used PowerPoint at any stretch, you can pick a thing and it'll make it blue or purple and put some swirls on it. It looked like it did that and just filled in the text boxes with some text. So it was more like a mail merge versus true AI, but it did find an image somewhere and stuck it in there. So maybe it'll work.
I think it's pretty fantastic, honestly, but it's also very scary. Like the more I'm using it, the more I'm just kind of like, I feel like this could kind of break into even the developer space, and we'll see what happens, right? Because in some regards, it's like it's kind of scary that I don't need to figure out who's really good at Excel to build these charts out for me. I could just like, I don't need to technically be good at Excel to validate this is good. I just need to know that the results are good, and like I could look at the graphs and be like, this doesn't look right. I don't need to know like those the Excel like coding pivot whatever language that the pivot tables and all that. So yeah, exactly. I could just say like, I want you to analyze these charts and do something for me, right? And I don't have to go through that middleman or woman. I am really impressed with Microsoft though. Like they've just been like, once they got hold of this, they've just been like pumping it into all of their like suites, and you even hear about GitHub Copilot now using ChatGPT. It's just insane.
So yeah, that's another thing. They announced that today. So that's a new thing. So Copilot's been in Visual Studio for a minute now, but they've enhanced it as of today. So now it's Copilot Chat within Visual Studio as well. So it's even more features. It's not just because it was basically IntelliSense on steroids, right? Is what it's been for a minute, basically predicting kind of next words or next couple of lines of code or whatever it's been. Well, now you can actually ask it questions. You can ask it to fix parts of your code or things like that, or write parts of your code.
Yeah, so like it's trying to like where you could like you used IntelliSense and IntelliCode to complete your lines of code, but then you get stuck. You could open up a chat interface and ask some questions. They could insert something right then and there. I haven't used it yet. Signed up for the public beta. It came out today. I just found it funny. They're calling it GitHub Copilot X.
Well,
so like they've changed the name of it already in true Microsoft fashion. That it'll come up with, it'll be 95 and 98 before long, and then it'll go to NT or something, you know. But anyway, I here's my thought on coding. I'm interested to see what Alex and Paul think. When you're coding, you use a coding language. And what a lot of people on the internet are saying is that we're just going to go to ChatGPT and code with English. And I just don't think if you're using JavaScript, C# or Go or whatever you're using, that's a better experience than just writing the code to begin with. You're going to have to know the same kind of things. What do you guys think? Would you rather code in Java, C# or JavaScript, or type in, you know, a complete novel in English to get it to generate some code that you're going to go change anyway?
You want to go first, Paul, or?
To me, I think it's like, you know, you had assembly, then you had like, you know, C, and you have these higher level languages, and it just seems that that's the path we've been taking. And it just, how can we make a developer's job easier? So using something like Common English, like someone doesn't have to bother with like, oh, I don't remember how to do a for loop in JavaScript, or how do you do it like in Go or Rust, whatever. You could just tell the thing that you want, and they'll make it for you. And then you're able to use your human prompts to kind of, you know, hey, no, that's not what I wanted. Can you change this or just the functionality? And there's a great scene in that show, Westworld, and I think it's the third season, where the girl was working, producing something, and it was all like prompt-based engineering. And I think, regardless how I feel about it, I think that's where the future is going. And to me, that's a little bit scary, because like, where does it put developers at? Because it seems like instead of thinking about how to actually code something, it's like you're just implementing via prompting like the things that you want. And what's the barrier to entry to that? Like, what do you need to know in order to qualify for those jobs? And is that going to lower what developers get paid? Because now it's like anybody could do it because it's just prompting.
Mm.
The only problem with okay, and I guess it's my issue with ChatGPT and everything. Like, number one, I personally really like it a lot, especially for these like weird nuances. I think mainly like recently I've just been using a lot of Tailwind, and literally what I put in ChatGPT is like, hey, I'm trying to do this, like this linear gradient. How do I do this in Tailwind? And then it'll just give me the exact way to write it as a class. And I'm just like, oh, perfect. This is what I need. Or like Prisma models. Like I just tell them I'm trying to build this app like with these. I give them like 8 or 9 models, and then they'll do the relationships for you. And then you look at it and you have to validate it, obviously. So I like that I could actually talk to him and be like, wait, but this relationship doesn't make sense because of this. And they'll be like, oh, sorry about that. Let me readjust this for you. And basically, it's like a way for me to have like a coding buddy in some regards to just like basically iterate over it. But I could already kind of see like the next step is somehow if you're able to build confidence that it just works on the first go, then it could kind of lead to that aspect where it's like you don't really need to think. But I don't know if we're kind of capable of getting to that point, just because I always feel like there's a hesitancy on my end to be like, no, this, I can't just trust this blindly. If they're able to somehow like visual, I think they kind of do it already a little with the GitHub CoPilot stuff, but it's like maybe more front end focused stuff where it's like you could it writes the code for you and then shows it to you visually what it looks like, and you're like, okay, that looks good, kind of thing. Then it could get a little scarier, which I don't think is too far off. So it's a tough one.
I think it works in the micro, but I don't know about the macro. Like a lot of people are saying it's
the micro,
whole app.
Yeah.
But the macro is like, I don't see it ever doing it. It's too complicated. It's too big.
Well, I have this feeling, like Alex was saying, like that we've got this thing and it feels like this giant leap, and there's this extra what seemingly is a smaller leap to become 100% perfect. But I think that to become 100% perfect is a bigger leap than we think that it is. Yeah. It's like, I think it's almost reaching its maximum. I don't think it'll ever be 100% perfect. I think it's always going to be a tool that's going to need guidance. That's the way I look at it.
It's like building an app sometimes, or a feature. Sometimes it only takes you 10% effort to build 90% of the feature. And then it's like literally spend 90% of your energy to fix all the edge cases. Like,
right. And that's what I feel with
this.
Do.
Exactly.
And that's what I feel with this. So I've been thinking about this lately, and I was reading something the other day, and it used the word pre-visualization, right? Which when you're making a movie, you have a previs of like your CGI scenes, right? So you have this kind of like, it's kind of a mock-up, right? So you have this like, let's say you're making a space movie and there's a battle scene or something, you have a previs version of the movie, right? It's not the final thing. It's not the thing you see on the screen. It's the one they kind of make before as like it's a placeholder for pieces. And it looks pretty good, but it's not perfect. And that's kind of what I think AI is. I think AI is like the previs version of this. It's not the final movie. It's the thing that's like, it's almost there, but it's not quite. And it needs that extra work, and it needs that extra human thing to push it to be 100% and to be correct.
Yeah. You mean like the She-Hulk CGI?
That was the best. That was ever. The most believable CGI ever.
That looked like they didn't push it to 100. They just
That's ChatGPT CGI.
So in that context, Kevin, like in regards to this Microsoft like AI powered Office suite thing, rather than having like 7 or 8 people that are building out these charts, you just you technically have just one person that's just really good at validating things, and then 6 people get fired basically, and then
potentially
just run it through like a script.
I think so. Yeah,
but I think we've always faced that. Automation's always faced that, and it seems like it's just there's more workers in the workforce. I mean,
well, this is the thing. Well, this is my take on this. It's not that it means we get less people. It means that we can do more things. Right. It means that we can push things further. It means that we can do more work. In this day and age, we're always complaining about never having enough time to do everything, right? It's like we're always saying there's never enough time to do this. I wish I had more time to do this. Well, now you're going to have more time. So maybe we now just have more time to think about ideas, to do more things. We're not spending 2 hours working on that PowerPoint template, because that's already done now. We move on to the next thing. We move on to the next idea, implementing the next thing.
But in coding, to an employer.
But here's the curious thing about
who's paying you.
Like, I mean, like it could do amazing stuff, but one thing that I have never seen it reproduce same example consistently. So like whenever you ask it to do something, it will have a different way of doing it. So you could never guarantee like, are you following certain like code standards unless they've been programmed or like taught to the model. It's always generating things at random, and they'll either work or they don't. And the funny part is like sometimes they'll write stuff and you put it in your code editor and you're like, wow, it's working. And sometimes you'll write some stuff that looks very similar. You put it in your code editor and you're like, what the hell was it smoking? Like everything is wrong. And then you start like exploring the code line by line. And it's like, it's either made up or it's something that's like, you know, from like 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, I'm just like, but it's just so wrong. And I think like you, at the end of the day, need somebody to obviously review it. But I think what's missing is that consistency of like creating something and replicating it where it's the same, which is something like I may follow a pattern and I will do the same because this is like the guideline I'm using, but I don't think AI right now is able to do that. And
The
you know,
thing-
like, yeah,
the
go
other thing
ahead.
I have is that it's just being up to date. So like
Yeah.
right now, like I'm working on something in Blazor United, which is like .NET 8. It's in preview 2. Like there is no documentation on it. You just have to kind of mess around with it. And there's no way you get help for stuff like that. I mean, like for the cutting edge type things, you just gotta like code it, you know, and assume parts of it work.
Ooh, I've got a question for Bobby and Kevin.
Yeah.
Like, you guys run a coding boot camp. What are you gonna do if some students start using ChatGPT on their homework assignments and stuff? Like,
So
can you even spot it? Can you tell? Like,
Yeah.
what's the jam?
So like we have a Bly project. It's funny you asked. We have a Bly project, and this is the first cohort, this one that we're just doing, and they have to build blog software. And then I say, I need you to write 30 blog articles, stick it in your software so you can show it to an employer. That's one of our commands. 2 guys used ChatGPT to generate them all. They told us, and they said, is it cheating? And I went, did you write the software? And they're like, yeah. Can you explain how software works? And they said, yeah. I said, we just generate the articles. I'm like, well, so all the other blogs. I mean, I don't know if it's a big deal or not. I mean, like my point of all of this is for people that are saying, hey, I'm just going to cheat at school or whatever. We always tell them like, you can't cheat an interview anyway. So like, you're gonna have to learn it if you ever want to work in it.
It takes one question to figure out somebody who used ChatGPT and didn't understand it.
Right.
It takes one question because they won't be able to answer the question. They won't be able to answer any question about their code. It's very easy to spot when somebody does it.
I mean, and I've heard about you talk about your Amazon interview. Could you ChatGPT your way through the Amazon interview?
Have some fun stories about that.
No way. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could technically. It's virtual, like, but you just have to type really quietly and really fast. Hey, don't mind me while I look at my other screen.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I just have to go check over here for 1 second.
Just like, oh, I was closing my eyes a little bit while I type with my left hand. But yeah, definitely not.
There were
go ahead,
some
Bob.
deep fakes of like people created. I got to look more into it, but I talked to someone exactly about that, where someone passed an interview using AI and deep fakes of like themselves and actually got hired. And so I think it's not a realm of not being possible. But
now we've worked at, I'm a consultant. I have a consulting company too. So we've had a large client of ours that, and we compete with another consulting firm. We're trying to get as many people as we can out there. And one time they interviewed a guy, and our guy lost out to this other guy, this competing company. They had interviewed with a guy, and then they sent a different person to the job, which is like the real deep fake, you know? Wow. So it was like, hey, man, I told the guy, I said, we'll send the actual person to interviews. So like, you know.
That's crazy.
But
that's old school deep faking. You know, that's just like, that's how the pros do it.
Before we move on to our next topic, can I just get you guys' opinion just on one thing?
Yep.
So I just want to just for peace of mind, so this isn't just me. So we're seeing AI stuff everywhere, right? And I mean everywhere. I'm turning on the news in the morning, it's about AI. My wife got a newsletter. She works at a bank. It was about AI, right? My parents know about AI. Like it's I'm not in a bubble, right? This is now a mainstream thing, right?
Yeah.
It is
100%.
I don't think
Especially
we're going back from
ChatGPT is
here.
a household name.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's. I think I forgot what the stats were, but apparently Google is just sweating right now because the number of Google searches have gone down significantly since this has been released.
Yeah, no, it's definitely here for us to stay.
I just wanted to check I wasn't in a bubble. Like, because I'm interested in this stuff and I'm always reading about it. So therefore I get fed more news from the AI about the AI. And I'm wondering, is it just me? Am I just seeing this a lot? Or is it, and I'm seeing the odd news story on, like, I turn on the TV in the morning. It's like on CBS. Like there's a 10-minute bit about ChatGPT.
So here's what I think. I think that I talk about screen shifts a lot. And I've come around to the fact that I think this is another kind of screen shift where all of the products are going to have some kind of AI embedded into them that are doing things. And if you are out there building an app right now and you want to raise money, it better have AI. It better be hooked up to some kind of, or you're not thinking hard enough about your product. I think it's essentially the new website. This is way bigger than what Web3 ever was. This, I mean,
oh yeah,
I don't think it's
maybe this
like
is Web3.
The 10 prompts that can make you $1 million. I don't believe in that, but I do think that as developers could build, has a new type of apps that can be built. And if you're thinking about it, you can build and roll out an app. And in fact, full disclosure, I'm not gonna say what it is. I'm working on one. So like, you know, like
I thought of a killer app idea.
Yeah. So we're going to work on one. We're going to roll it out here in hopefully in a minute, but so I just think it's the next screen shift. And if you can code, I think that you have a lot of opportunities to build something that didn't exist before. The cool thing is you can just hook it into OpenAI and then that part's already done for you.
The question I have around this is that, but what does that mean exactly for developers? Because there's going to be like the two camps of people that I think about, like implementers who are basically just using the technology that exists and they're finding creative ways to solve business problems around it, which is kind of cool. But if you can't do that, it's like you're kind of like, too bad. But then there's going to be that other camp of people who are actually the computer science researchers or like, language model researchers that doing the research, that creating new AI models, work for these huge like companies. And it's like, I feel like the divide, like it's almost like, how people say like middle class is going away. There's either like the poor and the super rich. And I feel it's going to be like the lower end of developers who are basically implementers. And then you have that a researcher. I work on the actual model that everybody else uses. And I'm kind of curious, like your thoughts on that. And what you think.
I don't think the guy making the model is important. I think when you look at the gold rush and you're like, oh, I'm going to go out and get gold rush. Who won? Levi's. I mean, like Levi's built all the jeans and then they made the pickaxes and everything else and all the wagons. So I think we're going to be the downstream from the big AIs are going to be in the big ones. I think Amazon's going to make one, they are. And then, Google's going to have one and Microsoft's going to they already have it. I mean, so I think we'll just be the users of that, just like we were the users of the internet. The internet was invented, but then we started making websites. And I do think it's an opportunity for us as coders to build things that didn't exist before.
So I had a conversation today with somebody who had a really great idea for a service that we could do. But the way he described it, I'm like, oh, if we create this as a service, we're not going to need as many developers. And so I was like, and so it's great for the company, it's great for the product. But it's like to your example, like you mentioned, you were Tech Rally, how you were working with Prisma and you're like, how do you generate a schema? Like imagine every application has a CoPilot where something that you used to have to do with code, you could literally from the admin of your application be like, hey, create these content types for a blog that's going to be blah, blah, blah. And it'll automatically create it and it will automatically insert that code in your backend. So now you don't need that developer to do that work where that's where people do it. So it's like, I am going to be creating a service that's going to be putting developers out of work.
Full disclaimer too, I say I actually never respond to any companies that are a no-code platform.
I totally understand.
But what I will say, if your company goes out and builds something and they automate a certain piece of whatever, they're going to find other things to build. So once you have that piece of revenue coming in, you're like, oh, I don't need all these 8 developers. You're not going to fire them all because I've done making my business bigger. You're going to turn around and go, what else can we build? I've got 6 more guys here. What else could we monetize? What else can we build? What other things can we make? And I think that that's the way this business has been since the mid 90s. It has nothing but exponential growth. And when you look at just the society as a whole, and then we introduce something brand new like AI, it's going to take a good billion people to make all this stuff.
So, being devil's advocate, like here's another question. Like a lot of people say when there's some big change, there's obviously going to be a lot of jobs that are going to disappear, but there's going to be a lot of job creation. Mm-hmm. But like what I think like this time around, the jobs that are going to be created is going to be less jobs that it would destroy. And I don't know if like you agree or disagree, but I think there's going to be shortage of, the difference between jobs created versus jobs destroyed, and there's not going to be enough jobs created for enough of the people that can qualify for them.
It would be something that has never happened before in history for all these innovations. So when you look at factories came online, we created way more jobs. You look at when we went from horse and buggy to cars, people thought, oh, there's no more blacksmiths, there's no more of this. I'm sure people were crazy about that. It allowed people to drive farther, and like more things happened. Factories happened, more things got created, more jobs happened. Cities grew. And then when the cities grew, there was more shops, there was more things. And so I think that same thing with websites. People have been saying, and you can take Strappy as an example, a CMS platform is going to replace all developers. We've had CMS platforms since the mid 90s. I mean, like we've been making those things over and over again for like 30 plus years, and there's still more developers. So like,
no, I mean,
people said when Dreamweaver came out, there was no need to write it in the
Dream Killer. That's what I called it.
With Strappy's case, it's CMS for developers. It's like
right, yeah, exactly,
yeah. It's not.
But
like,
let's use WordPress then. People said WordPress will kill developers.
No way.
It's getting there. They just released this whole new thing where you could do everything without a developer. It's pretty amazing. Wow.
But then they'll need a plugin that it doesn't do, and someone's got to build the plugin. I mean, like, and then they take things like streaming platforms. Netflix comes out in late 90s, and then like there's coders on every single platform. For everybody has a streaming platform, every large company, and they all had to build those things. And I just think that we'll build AI integrated tooling. I just think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to build something new, which that's what I'm doing. So like, I'm going to build something new. But we were laughing about it. Me and Kevin were laughing about it. When we went down through our idea. I don't want to get into it, but like we were saying, wow, we couldn't do this with ChatGPT. There's a lot of stuff here to do. There's a lot of stuff I got to code.
Yeah, you can just ask it to spit out this application because it wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's just like so. But it'll use OpenAI and it'll use all of these things.
My favorite joke about AI, like when they say, like when you have an AI company, you're gonna have two employees. You're gonna have a man and a dog. The dog, so like the dog to make sure that the man doesn't touch any of the equipment, and the man to feed the dog, because everything's gonna run by itself. So I'm always like pessimistic, but to me, I'm like, let's see how long it will take to get to the point. But
I don't see it in the next 20 years.
Yeah,
like it's too much stuff to do.
Yeah, I'd say like 10 years is going to be pretty ridiculous. I can't the stuff that it did in the art space is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's only getting like, I would not tell someone to be an artist right now, which is like so bad. And I know at some point someone will say, oh, there's going to be a time where you're going to tell someone not to be a developer. I don't know when the time's going to come. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
I would say right now though, like if you can, like there's going to be a point in time where you get this pushback where it's going to be human created tag will be a thing. Yeah. Like that will be a thing that people will pay extra for, that it was, that was human created. Somebody painted that. Wow. I will pay extra for that. Because it's like, then AI didn't do that. That's cool. There's not a million of those. That's cool. Like that's going to be a thing too. Like boutique things will continue to be a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic then. This is our kind of, although we've been talking about AI a bunch already, this is our Skynet Watch section. Let's talk about robot security guards with guns. Now, just to lead with this, the headline, and the headline was misleading to me. The headline was robots are replacing security guards. Should we give them guns? And I was like, So I started reading into this, and the better was the subheadline, which read, law enforcement considering arming robots capable of deadly force. Now, reading into this, these are two very different things. What they weren't talking about was having an android robot running around with like a gun. What they were actually talking about was in San Francisco, they have those bomb disposal robots, right? And they've okayed it, or they're looking at okaying it to basically strap a bomb to it and go blow somebody up, right? Who's like holding people hostage or whatever it is, like a sniper or whatever that situation is. So that's what it really meant. They weren't really talking about giving them guns, although when you have this regulation where you can do this, you technically could. So is this not just, are we not handing Skynet the keys?
No,
here?
we are. And this already has been done. The only difference is in those cases, the final human being has the power to pull the trigger. So like the AI doesn't make that decision. So there's plenty of autonomous drones that will track a target by themselves. They will show the feed of the target. They will follow them. And at the end, like the person behind the screen has to confirm, yes, kill this person or don't kill this person. So I think it's definitely possible right now. And somebody's probably itching their finger. Let's just let AI make that decision, which I think will obviously going to be terrible, but
the last part's pretty funny too. It's like the San Francisco department proposed a policy that allows these robots to use deadly force if it deems it to be extreme enough of a situation, or if police are in imminent. What's imminent danger mean?
Well, that's the problem, right? We can't even. I mean, the way AI is right now, we can't trust it to make correct decisions. You can't even get it to tell you the truth about a lot of stuff, right? It's like it's 80% true. Is it 80% going to be okay when it makes this decision? Like,
I call me old fashioned, but I think if someone's going to decide another human life, it should probably be a human.
Paul, that's not old fashioned. That's just sanity. That's sane.
Just like, I'm just saying, like, because I'm sure there's, plenty of people that are like, yeah, we definitely need that. We definitely need that.
We already saw Bean get insulted. I'm a good being. You're a bad person.
Oh my God.
He's holding a 45, a Glock.
Right. Now you're like, yes, you are Being. It's okay. Chill.
Just imagine something with a gun that's able to make the decisions outside of your input. Like that is scary to me. That is so scary. That's Terminator 2 for sure.
That and the let's not forget, like, people are going to hack these robots too.
Mm-hmm.
So you arm your whole your sci-fi police force in San Francisco with robots, and they're great until someone watches the movie I, Robot and go, hey, what if I just took over all these robots?
Here's
I have an army now.
You know how we do like the Skynet watch? We should add another part of it. It's like, which sci-fi movie do you think will become reality first? Is it going to be iRobot? Is it going to be Terminator 2? Is it going to be like RoboCop? I wonder,
Yeah, this one's clearly in the RoboCop camp, and we know how that turned out. It didn't
turn out good.
Didn't turn out so well.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So I think we can all universally agree this is a bad idea, right? We should not be arming robots.
Hold on a second. Wait, let me even bring it back. Think of how divisive our country is. Like, should people have guns? And then they're like, you know what? Forget it. We don't need to think about that. Let's just give all robots guns. Robots can have guns. That's the way to go. I mean, think of the lunacy. Like, my God.
We repeal the Second Amendment.
Realized that.
Give all the robots guns.
Jesus Christ. Like, what are you thinking? Oh, man. That, like, nobody bats an eye. It's like, oh, yeah. Robots have guns that are machines able to make decisions. Bob, your uncle, no, he can't have a gun.
Okay, let's talk about our last topic. Let's move on to our last topic. So I asked you guys to bring to the table a phone app that you either can't live without or is super useful, or your favorite app. You can bring 3 if you wanted to. I just want it down to 1 at the end, though.
I brought one.
Who wants to go first?
This is gonna be like so crazy. So I have this irrational fear that somehow I'm going to be left behind in this whole like AI train, and I'm not going to be smart enough to keep up with the technologies. And this is going to sound like such a product placement because I'm sure you've seen the ads, but I've been using this app Brilliant to literally like level up my math and like, my scientific thinking, all this stuff. It's pretty amazing. And what's awesome about it, it's all like visual based learning. So it makes it really fun to learn like very complex topics. And like the subscription here isn't cheap, but like it's like super worth it because I'm like, oh, this is like amazing. Grow my brain.
I like that. That's
I'm embarrassed in my app now.
I'm gonna look at that. That's cool.
Brilliant is good. It's really awesome.
Okay, cool.
They should be a sponsor, by the way.
That's right.
Hit Kevin up.
Yeah, that's all right. None of these apps we're suggesting today are sponsors at this point, but we're not saying they won't be next week. Alex, what you got?
I sound pretty boring to say this, but I use a lot of Twitter and a lot of iMessage. For some reason, those are like my 2 things that I just use a lot and I use every single day. It's kind of addictive actually, because I think I even like wake up in the morning and I just open my Twitter. So it must be addiction at its finest, addiction to technology. So I'm not as brilliant as Paul, so can't really give brilliant answers.
I mean, I didn't know if I was allowed to mention my dating app, so that's why I kept my mouth shut. But
which dating app is the best?
They can sponsor the channel too.
To be honest, like I decided, Tinder's definitely off the books. I mean, the stuff you read on Tinder, it's just like forget about it. So I'm going with Hinge, like more, long term focused, finding your soulmate. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I know a few people that have met on Hinge and tied the knot
I've
and stuff. So.
never ever met anybody on like a social app, so this is like so weird to me. Like I don't know if you have this problem, Alex. I usually just like walk outside and I'm like, oh, she looks interesting, and then next thing I know, I'm in a 5-year relationship. It's been like.
But just go to the grocery store. That's all you need to do.
Exactly. It's been like a thing for me. That's why I'm not allowed to. There's a running joke in my family. I can't believe I'm saying it. Like, I'm not allowed to be around au pairs because, like, that's like literally like I'm getting married. I've had like 4 long-term relationships with au pairs, and one of them I married.
Okay.
So
wow, you definitely have a type.
Exactly, I do have a type. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, maybe you should be a dating coach.
No,
for people that want long-term relationships, and you use AI to basically train it, and then it'll just be your AI coach, AI dating coach. New idea.
There you go. Yeah.
I like it. Okay, Bobby, what you got?
Mine's the meme joke. So I use several apps every day. Obviously, Twitter. I check our YouTube stats every morning, but I didn't want to go there. I call Kevin on Teams every morning. So like I use my Teams app every single day. But I'm just going to go with my Destiny 2 player integration app. So that's the one that in my downtime, I have to move my stuff around between characters and stuff like that.
Okay.
My mobile app. But I could have picked Teams if I wanted to be smart. But, yeah.
I like Teams. Teams is a good one. Okay, so I'm going to pick an interesting one to start off with. I use an app called Just Watch. So the problem that it solves for me is that I have 85 different streaming services, and I never know what I want to watch on each of these things. Like literally, like now it's like, I saw a comparison the other day, by the way, of how much you spend on these versus how much you spend on cable, and it's more now. So I should start cutting some of these down. But name it, I have it. So I don't watch that much stuff on it, to be honest, but I do watch a little bit from every one of them. So I always find out, like, it's hard to, like, I'll see somebody else say, like, oh, this TV show's on. They'll be like, okay, what app is that on? Try finding it. Like, it's a nightmare. This thing helps with that. So you can have this, you create an app, like, you create a list of things that you want to watch, and it tells you what service it's on. It'll link to that service too on your phone. So if you're watching on your phone, you can just click it and it'll take you straight there. It'll load Netflix or whatever. Or Amazon Video for you, Alex. There you go. There's plenty of stuff on there that I want to watch too. So it's a cool app. It's definitely cool. And it allows you to see like what's new, like what that service released new for that day as well. It's cool. It's a good app. Just Watch, that's called. Again, not sponsors, but if you want to sponsor, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pick something more boring. I use a couple of stock apps that I use like all the time. Timers. I use timers all the time. Like a simple, just like countdown timer. I use it to make tea. I use it to remind me to do something in 10 minutes. I use it for all kinds of stuff just like that. So I have a bunch of those that I use. And then reminders. I use reminders a lot. Like, I'll just be like, hey, remind me in 6 months I need to do this. Or remind me in 10 minutes I need to do this. It works for both of those things.
So you use a timer app to steep your tea?
Yeah. And here's why. It's so I don't forget, because I'll pour the tea in, right? It needs to be about 3 minutes, right? And then I'll come back upstairs here and I'll do something, and then my timer will go off, and then I'll go take the tea bag out.
So I don't know if it's true. Like, I'm not saying any way to be derogatory, but I have some friends, when they talk about tea, I'm like, you're literally a tea snob. Because to me, like, I just put the tea bag in, and whenever I get to it, I get to it. But I'm realizing I'm drinking horrible tea.
You are. You're either doing one of two things. If you put it in and you take it out too quick, you're not getting it steeped correctly. If you leave it in, you're getting this thing called tannins in your tea, which like ruins the taste of the tea.
100% makes sense.
So there's an optimal brew time. So you
temperature too.
Steep your tea for a certain
depending on what you want. Yeah,
temperature too.
Yep. So there's an art to it. I'm just too ignorant, and I'm able to admit it.
You need to hang with Kevin more.
I know.
He'll teach you how to make tea.
Learn how to make tea.
Tea is an art. Tea is definitely.
Or you could just ask ChatGPT, Paul.
I will. I actually, I've been making all my decisions based on ChatGPT 3. Like,
Yeah. So when ChatGPT can brew tea, I think we may think it's over.
Oh my goodness, that's a great idea. Basically, you just ask ChatGPT to do something and have it connected to like this mechanical arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's cool. I kinda
Slap
like that
Paul in the
idea.
face.
Oh yeah. So I mean, so here's like I agree with what like where your thoughts are going, because I had this great business idea. You know, when you're talking to somebody like online and you just like this, I just not sure about this person. So I want to create a service called Slapogram, where someone's able to make a request and someone will deliver like a little friendly slap. You know, like to put people in check on Twitter. You know, it happens sometimes, right?
This is
so
a
I like your
lawsuit waiting
idea.
to happen.
Yeah.
How are
This
you
is
not
a
a
lawsuit
billionaire
waiting
by
to
this
happen.
point, Paul? How is that happening?
You know,
With all
I
these
learned
great
with
ideas.
ideas, like you need to execute. Execution is the key, and not get sued and not get arrested. I think all those matter. I think
He's
all
like
those
that
important.
PhD, whoever that first person was regarding the nanobots. He just has a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
And one of them will hit.
But well, here's the thing, though. I'm not
Slapogram.
delusional about any one of them becoming true. That's like, I know all of my ideas are terrible, but it doesn't mean I can't discuss them in public. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
That's great. Okay, so that's it for this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. Thank you for everybody for listening. Two things, if you could do it for us, share this podcast with somebody you think might be interested in listening to it. And if you leave us a review somewhere, that would be great too. We've got some good reviews on Apple Podcasts, by the way. We've got 5 stars on there at the minute. We have like 7 reviews. That's pretty good.
Nice. Awesome.
So whoever left those reviews, thank you so much. We would love to get some more as well. Actually, I also set up a email address too. So if anybody wants to email us anything, a question, a comment, anything, email us and I'll make sure to mention you on the next podcast. We are the Not Null Podcast at gmail.com. So the Not Null Podcast at gmail.com. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next week.